Is it recording? Welcome to the Expansion Project. I am your host, Fat Tony. In this show, I have casual yet deep conversations with professional athletes, entrepreneurs, coaches, investors, and other successful people in hopes of expanding my mind and yours while motivating and inspiring people along the way. First of all, thank you guys so much for all the great feedback on the podcast. This is the first episode I'm recording after I launched the first 8 shows, and I couldn't be more excited about the response they got. It really does mean a lot to me, and all that positive energy just makes me that much more eager to keep doing the interviews and sharing them with you. With that said, if you like what you hear, please subscribe on iTunes, and while you're at it, give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. I will read out the first 10 reviews that get posted to iTunes, and I'll give you guys a shout out here on the show. My guest today is a guy who I met earlier this year through the wonderful powers of social media. His name is Sani, and like most of the people I interview on the show, he has a lot going on but doesn't have a full-time job. Jason is a nutritionist, a personal trainer, a business and marketing consultant, and an entrepreneur who helped start a DVD fitness program that you may have seen on infomercials. Jason and I caught up about the 2015 CrossFit Games Open, and spoiler alert, he beat me in the worldwide standings. We also talked about how he divides his time between everything he has going on and stays motivated to keep doing the things he's passionate about. And on top of that, we discussed how he worked with a team of people to build and launch a company. The Chime In question this episode was, what is your biggest weakness when it comes to food cravings? And Jason had a lot of great input on that, and he gave a bunch of tips of how you can give into those cravings using healthy, purpose-driven alternatives so you don't feel guilty about it. First, I'll introduce my guest, Jason Sani. Thanks for dropping by. You're in the house today. Finally, we have somebody in the living room studio and not on Skype, so hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties today, so welcome.
Right on. Thanks for having me. Nice to be here in the LBC.
Yeah. So really quick, let's explain how we got connected. And if my memory serves me correct, I think it was you originally reached out to me via email after you saw some of my photos from the OC Throwdown, which was a CrossFit competition I shot here in California this past January. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's right. So I think it was something with social media, probably on Instagram. I had noticed a buddy of mine who's a CrossFit competitor out of Phoenix area, out of Scottsdale. I noticed some pictures, and then I think from there noticed a couple other pictures and saw the link to your name, went there and noticed that you had taken some pretty cool action shots of that competition. And these days with ADD, you click on one thing on social media and you end up, all over the place. Yeah. And I immediately had seen your profile, and I think it mentioned something about, just being more of a conscious athlete, from the health perspective. I think it mentioned something about being plant-based, and, a light bulb went off of, wanting to get in touch and trying to collaborate one way or another.
Yeah, cool. So now that we have set that, last time I saw you, you were out here in California and got to go to the Fit Expo with you, so that was cool. But you also came to my gym, CrossFit Long Beach, and did the 15.2 CrossFit Games Open workout at our Friday Night Lights, so that was really cool. How did you feel like you did in the Open this year?
It was cool for me. It was a very humbling experience, I should say. I mean, I've only been doing CrossFit consistently for a little over a year, although I consider myself, in very good shape from, doing triathlons or, past playing football and, doing a lot of Olympic exercises. But I'm happy that I completed everything, injury-free, feeling good. There's definitely some new movements that I had avoided. I'll admit that, there's programming that I see in CrossFit, and there's times where I avoided, like I wasn't big on doing, overhead squats, which I think we had that day. Yeah. Or something like double unders, for example. I just, avoided those, where it kind of forced me to learn it so I wouldn't look like an absolute fool. So it was really neat to see how I placed, along the region with peers and people that, I worked with on a regular basis. And it was really neat to, to see me keeping up with some of the bigger guys and, just where you're at.
Yeah, totally. Do you know where you finished out in the Worldwide Open?
Worldwide, it was crazy. It was something, I don't know, it was like 16,000 out of something. I don't know where it was.
I've got the numbers here. I did a little research.
Busted.
And so out of 153,273 people, this is men in the entire world that did the full prescribed workouts, didn't scale or whatever. So I came in 29,281. So that's about the top 19 percentile of fit men in the world. You came in at 16,130. So you're about 10.5% percentile. So congratulations. That's rad, man. It's really cool. Was this your first time doing the Open?
This was my first time doing it. And, it was really cool just buying into the whole experience of seeing each week where people were placing. And I think that's what's cool about CrossFit. It's if you don't buy into the whole stereotypical thing that scares people away from it. It's done a big thing for the fitness generation of getting people to be competitive with themselves, of just chasing the path of better and progress. And so, I thought it was a cool experience. It was very addicting to see that, a couple seconds could completely change your time or repetitions and so on. So it was fun.
Yeah, cool. Do you have a favorite workout from this year's Open?
Favorite workout? I'll have to go with what I felt like was my most strength. I'm body weight wise, just from doing a lot of, I don't want to say gymnastics type of stuff, but just being good with my body. The handstand push-ups and cleans were decent for me. So I think that was the one that I did the best on. And it was really cool because I felt like I kept up there with some of the better guys, around our region. So,
so the cleans on that workout were at 185 pounds. How is that in relation to your 1 rep max? Do you know your 1 rep max clean?
The most I'd ever done a 1 rep max was, I think I've done around 250. I know I did 245, and I think I did maybe it's a little bit more than that. And that was back in high school, believe it or not. And then recently in the last year, I had done 245 again. So I wasn't repping that very much. So it felt extremely heavy.
For sure. That was actually my favorite workout as well. Was the handstand push-ups and the cleans. And so my 1 rep max on the clean, I think 225. So 185 is like right at the cusp of where it feels really heavy but still comfortable.
Yep.
Like any heavier than that, and I would have been like, oh shit, I don't know if I can do this like 6 times or whatever, But I really like that one.
It got sloppy for sure. I know that I had to turn some of those cleans at the end into more just squat cleans just to get them up.
Oh, so. Yeah. My least favorite of the Open workouts this year was absolutely 15.5. It was the thrusters and rowing.
Wow.
And it was just a lot of thrusters. I can't remember that. It was 27, 21, 15, 9. So what is that, 45 plus 27? I'm not good at math. Don't put me on the spot here. But, like 67 reps or whatever it was. Like that's just a lot of thrusters at pretty heavy weight. And, oh, man, it was miserable. But I was really glad to complete it. And like you said, it's just knowing that you can complete all the workouts. You can do all the movements. Like, muscle ups didn't stop me from doing anything. Double unders didn't stop me. And it just felt great to complete that. Last year I actually tried to do it and got hurt before the last workout, which is kind of good because the last workout last year was also really, really brutal with a bunch of thrusters. But yeah, seeing that, I'm in the top 19 percentile in the world, like that's not an amazing number, but it's cool for me, and it's cool to see that, and there's nowhere else that you can go to see that.
I agree. I think it's awesome. Yeah, just to add that last one, I was dreading it and looking forward to it. I thought it would be cool I was like, this is it. I'm going to finish it. I waited till the last day to get it done because I had, without knowing, done something that my legs were still pretty sore from. I think I went just like a crazy long bike ride or something, but I haven't felt like that in a while. And I was like, I want to do decent. And then the gym that I was doing at CrossFit Blur in Scottsdale, I was trying to be sneaky about it, and then I heard people notice that I was doing it and started cheering. So, I had to go all out at that point. And I just collapsed at the end.
Oh, for sure.
I hadn't felt like that in a long time, but I literally couldn't get off the ground for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I screamed and had a few curse words, belt out.
Okay.
So do you do CrossFit on a regular basis? Is that your main kind of training modality right now?
I love it. Direct CrossFit, I wouldn't say I do daily, but a few times per week. I either do a CrossFit style workout or I do Olympic lifting. Like I love the explosive training, and then from a physical perspective, I love all the byproducts of it, like the growth hormone effect that I feel like you get from it, and it gets your synapses firing. It feels great. So it's something that I feel like I'm missing out on if I don't get in on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I don't go into a CrossFit box or studio consistently every day. I'd love to if I could find the time. But for me, it's just getting in a few times per week and working on the things. Like I love squatting, I love deadlifting, and I think it complements, those natural movements complement everything.
Mm-hmm. So what is your How would you describe your training regimen or whatever kind of program you're consistently doing?
As cliche as it sounds, I mean, functional fitness, I try to do things that are going to help me run faster, jump higher, live longer, but also look better at the same time. So I think that's a niche that I've kind of found. I've had a background doing, some of the cheesy, modeling type of stuff, which has opened up some cool doors. So in the back of my mind, aesthetically wise, like as a kid, I grew up fascinated with bodybuilding. I never really got into bodybuilding, but I thought it was so cool that, you see these people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, these superheroes that can like shape their body. And, so for the years I've been doing fitness stuff, even though it started with sports, like it's such a cool thing to see the byproduct of being able to look better and change things. So that aesthetic thing in my mind still plays into what I do on a weekly basis. So, I mean, I'm doing core movements and plank style stuff. I try to get something in every day. I do a track type of like sprint type of workout at least once a week. I mean, it can be freezing cold. I'll do it, outside or on a track. But I got to do Olympic lifting a couple times per week. And then I do, drop in when it's more like triathlon type of season. I get my road bike out and love swimming. So it's really mixing things up. And it's probably the ADD that I have of kind of just, how can I try to get better at something else and then move on to something else.
So it sounds like you don't follow like one particular program necessarily. Like, do you plan out a week in advance? Do you plan out a month for yourself? Like you're a trainer, obviously.
Yeah.
So do you make a plan for yourself and stick to it? Or do you wake up and say, okay, I feel like I need this today? Or how does that work?
I definitely have a direction of where I'm going. I'd say, within the week, I always keep my mind like, what am I preparing for? So like if potentially I'm going to be on camera or I have to film something, I may be doing something that's going to be more aesthetic friendly. Or if there's a race, it could be a triathlon sprint, for example. I'm going to make sure that I'm feeling fresh. My legs are feeling good. My endurance is feeling good. But I always have a kind of a snapshot the week ahead of what I've done and what I'm going to do. But it's like even in the middle of a triathlon type of season, I'm still going to be doing some lifting that's going to still help with that aesthetic looks. Because, I mean, we work in a world of marketing and walking advertisements. So, it definitely helps get my message across if I can, live what I'm trying to preach.
Right. Totally random question, off topic. I saw you post some stuff from Lululemon. What's your affiliation with them?
It's pretty cool. I got invited to be an ambassador with them a couple years ago. Total surprise. Looking probably 4 or 5 years back, I'd gotten into yoga, and probably part of the reason I got into yoga was because of Lululemon and these girls wearing Lululemon pants.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is a jackpot. Why haven't more guys gone to yoga just to be here? This is crazy. And it was a really cool experience, and I saw the impact that Lululemon had within the community of just bringing together events. And I looked at that as an opportunity to get more exposure to what I was trying to do. It was around the time that I was trying to volunteer to do more speaking events and volunteer to teach boot camps. And so I started doing that with a couple of the Lululemons in Arizona, and they'd invite me to do some nutrition workshops. I would just volunteer to do as much as I could, and they were really supportive. And, one night during an event, I was doing a nutrition event, giving off some snacks for this like ladies' night out event, and they surprised me and asked me to be an ambassador in their store. And it was cool. So it was a 2-year deal to where they basically just, they support all your events that you're doing. Plus they give you some free gear and some discounts, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then they team you up with other ambassadors. So it's been a really cool experience, and the free clothing hasn't been bad.
Yeah, for sure. When you were out here for the Fit Expo, I was noticing that you were wearing some Lululemon pants, and they were a little bit weird color, but I kept looking at them. I was like, man, those are some pretty dope pants. Like they look like they fit really well. And funny enough, somebody from my gym, backtrack, after I saw them, I went and checked out their website because I never knew they made pants like that for guys. And I was like, oh, these are dope. And then I checked and I was like, oh, $128. I'll pass for now and keep wearing my Fox shorts that I get for free from a hookup,
Yeah.
But then funny enough, somebody from my gym posted a link to those same pants on our gym Facebook page. And apparently they're called like the Nut Huggers or
the ABC pants.
What's it stand for?
ABC, Anti-Ball Crusher. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm wearing some ABC shorts right now.
Nice.
Anti-Ball Crusher. So, I mean, it's clever and witty type of naming for their stuff, which makes it all fun. But to add to it, those pants are cool. I mean, most of their clothing, and I have no reason to plug these guys right now, like their clothes feel like you're wearing a hug, but they're super functional. Like the slack, they're kind of like a slacks type of thing, and they have them in cool colors, but you can, kind of be dressed up more formal looking, but you can go sweat in them and move around.
Right,
and
right.
So
that's what it seemed like, and it seemed like they fit well enough. Like my whole thing is that if I try to get pants that look a little bit nicer, and like I don't ever really dress up, you know what I mean? Like my dress up is still jeans and high top sneakers, but with like a blazer maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was to go that style, like getting something that's slim enough that doesn't look all baggy and like pleated and stuff, like old school Dockers, that's just a nightmare for me. So those look really cool. Anyways, enough about Lululemon pants. This is not what the show is about at all. So one more kind of random question while we're catching up here is, you turned me on to these MTC bites, and I saw them on your Instagram. You told me about them, and you emailed me about them. You're like, yeah, they're kind of weird, but trust me on this. And, dude, I made them, and as soon as you walked in, I showed you. I made a fresh 2 batches last night. I have them in the freezer. I make them all the time. So for the listeners, basically what these things are is melted coconut oil mixed with some protein powder, chia seeds, and maybe another type of flavor. So I've made some with chocolate protein powder and then cacao nibs, and I made some with an apple pie protein powder and then some green supplement. And you just put them in the freezer, like mix them up, pour them on a tray. I'll post a link in the show notes. I'm probably doing a terrible job explaining it. But these things are freaking delicious. And I've got to ask, how do you come up with something like that?
That's cool. I mean, they're hard to explain. I mean, I'm a food junkie, and I mean, it started, coming just from my passion of like just loving snacks and good food, and then my education in nutrition, like trying to bring those things together. So to me, it's like looking at things that I crave, and I hear from clients that they crave, and like, how can I make a healthier version? And I immediately, when I see somebody eating something, like it's going through my head, like I'm an absolute nerd, just like do. How can we make this like using purpose-driven ingredients? So something like that, I think I was just trying to find as many recipes I could make with this plant-based protein, as from a convenience perspective, and I came across somebody reference Thin Mints that were using coconut oil. And I played around with it. I knew that if you melt coconut oil, so coconut oil, if it's around like 77 degrees, it's pretty neutral. If it goes above that, it becomes liquid. If it's a little bit lower than that, it solidifies. And so I melted this coconut oil, threw in some protein, and my first batch was these Thin Mints. I was trying to recreate them, and I wanted the crunch from. I mean, I love Girl Scout cookies. I mean, I don't know who doesn't. And I played around with the flavoring that we had and put in some peppermint extract. And at first they looked completely ugly because you melt this all together. You lay it over like a parchment paper or a silpat, and you put it in the freezer for like 5 minutes, and you crunch them up. But the texture was incredible. And then I call my kitchen the research and development lab. I just go in there and I'm constantly just, scratching my own itch of just making different snacks and things that I really crave. And that's one of the many. But that one I show so many of my snacks to people, and I have a pretty good intuition, if there's something that's okay, how people's reaction. But I showed that to enough people that like really loved them. I was like, okay, I got to really push these on people because they're game changers.
For sure. So that's actually a pretty good segue here to go into our Chime In segment. So Chime In is when I post a question on Instagram, and I have readers and listeners chime in with their answers to my question. So this week's question that I posted was, what is your biggest weakness when it comes to food cravings? So you were talking about, trying to make food more delicious and stuff, and this is right up our alley here. So I'll read off a couple of these, and you can fire back at me if you got anything you want to say back to him. So we've got at M Sanchez 35. Shout out to Mark. Actually, he used to go to our gym, and now he lives out in Phoenix area by you.
Very cool.
Actually, Mark, and then also at its_Tina, and at Lucha Librarian. All three of them said pizza.
Nice.
And that is their food cravings. I was never huge on pizza, but I do like that doughy crust, man.
Yeah.
Every once in a blue moon, I'll have like a big vegan slice of pizza and just sink into that dough, and I just love it.
Yeah.
We've got at Sons of Burke says cheese, and that's actually one thing that even before I was vegan, I was never real big on it. And part of that was, even though I didn't know, I was going to say even though I didn't know a lot, but even though I didn't know a single thing about food at that point, I felt like all the cheese in our culture is just like plastic, fake, I don't know what.
Yep.
And so I never felt like I was going to get any benefit from it at all. And this is like a completely uneducated mindset. And so that was like fairly easy for me to cut out cheese pretty early on. We've got at Stupid Easy Paleo. Shout out to Steph over at Stupid Easy Paleo. And also at Aaron San 86. Both say chocolate is their weakness.
Would you want me to tackle these?
Yeah,
okay.
Let's hear it.
So, I mean, I've taught, probably, close to 100 workshops of just, groups of people from, 6 to 10 to groups of, over 100 plus. And I love, taking these live questions as far as, like, what are your biggest indulgences and cravings? And let's work them out right away to find a way that you can still enjoy that experience, without that guilty type of feeling, So pizza, number one, depending on what your eating preferences are, you got a couple different routes. And, keeping in mind delicious has got to be the number one priority here. If you do eat meat, you can do one option. You can make a healthier version, which a lot of people like, is you can make a crust out of, this sounds terrible for anybody who likes plant-based stuff, but you can make a crust out of like ground chicken and flaxseed as a crust, or you can substitute the chicken, for a cauliflower, as long as there's something that will hold it together. So you can Google cauliflower pizza, for example, or what I tell people with the pizza is, like, for the sake of a better recipe, Google paleo pizza, and you'll find options. But people have done their homework and played around, and posted a lot of good recipes. And what it's going to mean if it's paleo is that it's at least not going to have any grains, it's not going to have any dairy, and it's not going to have any processed food. And you're going to still have to judge it by who's posting it, but it'll at least spark some ideas. So the pizza option, you can do a few different things. You can use like flatbread, or make it on. You just want to use purpose-driven ingredients. That's my whole idea about making upgraded versions of recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Next being cheese. I come from an Italian family where cheese is the glue on everything. I literally, when I found out I had an intolerance to dairy, like when I found I couldn't have cheese, like my life like just flashed in front of my eyes. And I was like, wait a second, I use cheese on everything. This is going to be tough. I put cheese on cheese. So, biggest thing there was just finding, why do we eat cheese? We eat cheese for that texture that you have. And so I've looked at what like a lot of plant-based people were doing, vegetarians and, vegans, and they were using nutritional yeast, and that just opened up a whole new world for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so those of you who don't know what nutritional yeast is, it's essentially a dehydrated molasses that has a natural fermentation and then leaves it with a nutty, cheesy type of flavor that's loaded in B vitamins. So it's actually really good for you. And it has a cheesy type of texture that, especially if you mix it with like an olive oil, or you can blend it with cashews and make like a cashew nacho cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a jackpot for me. And just making healthier sauces, a lot of them like cashew based or sunflower seed based, and putting that on different things makes it feel like I'm eating that cheese type of texture. And then without rambling on, chocolate, I'm obsessed with chocolate. So I have chocolate on a daily basis. Whether you do the chocolate alternative like carob, which still has some health benefits, and you can do carob beans, or the powder, or using cacao, which is raw chocolate. It's also a really fun word to say. Holy cacao. But cacao is the raw chocolate that truly has all your benefits from it, like magnesium. It's got, the natural antioxidants, and it has no sugar. So it's got a little bit of a bitter taste. But you can bring out that sweetness with some natural stevia or some coconut or some honey, something to bring that out, or some dates even actually can bring out the cacao. So I have chocolate ice cream a lot. I have chocolate, these MCT bites or the Thin Mints, chocolate pancakes, even chocolate vegan pancakes that you can do with the chia seed egg. So there's a ton of possibilities there.
For sure. This might be the most informative Chime In segment I've ever done. So thanks for you chiming in on these. I'll quickly go down a few more. At the Seaside Vegan says Whole Foods vegan chocolate chip cookies, and I haven't had those yet, but I am pretty big on the vegan donuts at Whole Foods with the maple icing on top. Those are a big weakness. At Whitney Rotten says bread is my favorite thing. I can totally relate to that. Before I was vegan, man, I used to just go to town on dinner rolls. Actually, dude, so there's a place in the Midwest. It's a like a chain, kind of like Applebee's and Chili's and stuff. It's called Cheddar's. And they have, instead of like a regular dinner roll, they'll give you a basket of these croissants, like just buttery, flaky croissants with this crazy like honey butter glaze on top. And, dude, they just melt in your mouth. It's like a Krispy Kreme donut. And I went to I think I've only been there in one location. It was in Joplin, Missouri. I used to go every year for this big BMX competition there. And I would go in, and no lie, I would order a dozen of these fuckers and bring them to my hotel room and just chow down on them like as a snack all night long. So much so that a good friend of mine ordered me a dozen and shipped them to me one time, like kind of as a joke.
Wow.
So yeah, I can totally relate to you there, Whitney, on the bread thing. At Marcus Tooker, shout out to him, awesome BMX rider. He says watermelon sour patch.
Ooh,
that's
little sour.
dangerous enough that I don't need to have help staying away from that anymore. But I totally used to get the candy thing. I used to chow down on sweet tarts like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
At Kevin Porter BMX, shout out to him as well. I can eat an entire snack bar, so I think he can just eat anything. Underscore fitness chef underscore. Of course, that's Chef Katie Lively over at Chef Kate's Nut Butter. She says nut butter. That's a big one too.
That's a big spot for me.
As her being one of my sponsors or hookups or whatever, I chow down on the Chef Kate stuff nonstop, man. Just spoonfuls and put it on everything. Let's see. At Jenny Coleman Photography says nacho cheese Doritos. And this is one I want to get you real quick. At Going Shirtless, my buddy Gabriel Grobin, I had an episode with him. If you haven't heard it already, go check out his episode. He says Oreos. And then last but not least, I'd love to get your thoughts on this one. At Brett Rolfing, he's a BMX filmer and photographer down in Florida. He says, technically not a food, but energy drinks. No food can tempt me as much as them. My thoughts on energy drinks is, even though, again, I don't know shit about nutrition, especially compared to somebody like yourself, but I just look at those and I think there's no way that can be anything beneficial to you. They're horrible for you. Stay away from them. But it's a weird catch-22 because in action sports, these companies like Red Bull and Monster and stuff, they do so much cool stuff for the sport and for the industry by, putting on some of the dopest events out there, sponsoring the best riders out there, paying guys like me to shoot photos and cover events and stuff. So it's a weird kind of ethical thing that sort of runs through my head every once in a while because I do believe in treating your body well and putting good fuel in your body, but I don't necessarily believe in these products. And hopefully nobody from one of those companies hears this and decides not to hire me again to shoot photos. But let me get your thought on energy drinks.
Yeah, that's funny. Just briefly to bring that up, I was taking this guided hiking tour for this Google event that was in Phoenix, and I had some guy. I mean, there was a ton of executives in town, and I think I had this guy asked me what my opinion was on Gatorade and its new Gatorade energy drink, and I was like, oh, Gatorade's garbage. I mean, unless you're an athlete in the middle of a hardcore workout and you're depleted of all your minerals and you absolutely need something, that's about it. And I guess the guy was like, I don't know if he was like, he's a VP of Pepsi or whoever was the one that owns Gatorade. It was a hilarious situation, but I stuck to my guns.
Yeah.
My situation is we're in a society where everybody's drained of energy and looking for different stimulants, and having more energy allows you to ideally be more productive and do more things. But we just have to look at the root cause. I mean, the way I look at energy, especially with stimulants and energy drinks, is it's like credit cards. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you get to use it, but you're going to be paying it back one way or another. And typically, depending on how your body is overall, there's going to be a level of interest. And you might not be drained the next day, but I mean, it's jacking up your adrenal glands. And so if you create a habit of relying on using these instant gratification type of energy stimulants, it's only a matter of time before your adrenal glands and where you naturally produce that energy is going to take a big hit. So that being said, I mean, you got to watch out. First thing, use common sense. Like, what are the ingredients? If it's loaded in sugar, that's obviously not going to be good for you because you're going to have to pay the benefits of that big time of inflammatory response that really breaks your body down. It feeds diseases and all that type of crap. But then if it's loaded with crazy processed sweeteners, I mean, that's a lot of chemical craziness going on that at the same time, I think it's going to have a big effect in the long term. And again, you're relying on something else. Coffee, is probably a better bet. It's just what gives it a bad name is all the crap that people mix into it. So look for natural herbs, in my opinion, that you can do with things like green tea types of things and ginseng, and then more cognitive stimulation. So doing things like making sure that your body has all the essential fatty acid it needs from omega-3s and different B vitamins and different amino acids that can actually fuel your brain for the long term. But I mean, some of those things do a lot more damage than good, and you see it. Some people just crash out and just lose all their energy. It compromises their immune system. I'm a huge fan of energy because I feel like it's something that I live by, and energy is related to enthusiasm and it helps so much. But you just have to think about what it's doing on the inside and the long-term effect of it.
Yeah, for sure. So my biggest weakness, just to kind of wrap up this Chime In segment here, my biggest weakness when it comes to food cravings is sugar and carbs. So cakes, cookies, donuts. I mean, there was a time in my life where I used to eat ice cream every single night, But I've told a lot of people this, and I'll go ahead and say it here on the podcast. Since going vegan, it's so much easier for me to stay away from the sugars and the carbs and the things that I know are bad for me, even if they are vegan, because I know that sugar is bad for me. I know that a lot of these other ingredients are bad for me. And so I look at it this way. I really liked, before I was vegan, raw salmon at a sushi place, right? And a piece of raw salmon probably has a lot of health benefits. It's probably pretty decent for you, And that piece of raw salmon is for sure better for me than eating an entire bag of Whole Foods or Trader Joe's like vegan cookies. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to deprive myself of something like salmon that I know is delicious, and of course that deprivation or whatever you want to call it is based more than just the health reasons for me personally. But if I'm going to deprive myself of that and then instead put all this like crap in my body, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
So now it's easier to make these decisions of like, okay, I'm going to stay away from that because I'm, staying away from so much other stuff also. So it just kind of evens out the playing field a little bit more. So with that said, do you have anything that you still give into even though you're a really healthy eater and know so much about nutrition and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're all human and we have kind of our cravings. I mean, if it's out of control, people should take a look at like what deficiencies that they have. It's probably something they're just missing on a regular basis. But I mean, speaking for myself, I get asked all the time, like, do you ever cheat or what's your cheat day or your cheat meal? And, I've heard an analogy recently. It's like, well, if you're in a really good relationship, you don't feel like you necessarily need to cheat. And that sounds, kind of funny saying that. But what I mean by that is like, I find a way to use, purpose-driven ingredients to where I can eat ice cream on a daily basis. I can eat sauces and things that I make that are really healthy. Like an example, like I love pesto. So I do a healthy pesto where, I use the same type of ingredients with no dairy. I use I'll use hemp seeds and dill and garlic, and that's more for the ranch that I do. I guess if I'm doing pesto, like basil and fresh types of ingredients, and then I'll dilute it down with like some green tea or something, so I can stretch it out and make it go a little bit further. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I love sauces. I love that savory type of feel. And nut butters are huge for me. That's probably my biggest craving. I can put away coconut butter. I don't know if you guys have played around with this, but check out coconut butter. You need to heat it up a little bit so you can stir it together. But it's like vanilla frosting with barely any sugar. It's very caloric dense. It's a good fat with good fiber. But I've been mixing that with almond butter, and then I'll mix in like cardamom or some cinnamon or mesquite flavor. And that on anything is amazing. I'll put that on an apple. I'll put that on like a pancake thing that I make. I'll just eat spoonfuls of it. I'll pour it in stir fry. So nut butter is to me that savoriness. I crave that like good, healthy fat. So absolutely.
I'm going to come clean here on the podcast for the first time publicly and say that I had an epic cheat week very recently. After the CrossFit Open was finished, after I did 15.5, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a week out of the gym, and I'm going to give myself a week to just eat whatever the hell I want. And so I went to Trader Joe's and Whole Foods in the same night. I bought a bag of cookies. I bought a box of ice cream sandwiches. And, this junk food to me is still a lot better than most things. It's still like not processed very much, if at all. Raw cane sugar instead of, corn syrup and those kind of things. And, of course, it's still all vegan. But it's crap, you know what I mean? But I spent all week just, pounding the nut butters, pounding, the entire bag of cookies within 24 hours. The box of ice cream sandwiches was gone within 2 days, box of gluten-free waffles, poured some maple syrup on it, threw some nut butter on there. And I just went to town, and man, it was a fucking tasty week. But once it was all gone, I didn't buy it again, and now it's out the house, and now I'm just back onto my clean eating habits and stuff. But moving along here, we're about a half an hour in, and we've got a lot of business talk I want to do.
Nice.
So now let's get into the actual meat of this interview here. So I've said this about one other of my guests, and I don't say it about many people. As someone that kind of has a lot going on in terms of like, I do a lot of different projects, like whether it be photo, video, like photography, like, whatever it is, I do a lot of stuff. And so I'm kind of good at looking at other people and sort of picking out like the things that they do in order to kind of cultivate and create their life. With you, I'm having a hard time with that. I got to be honest with you. So I'm going to go down a list of what I can see from an outside perspective that to me it looks like this is what you do, and see if I'm on the right track.
All right.
So you work for Nutrisuma, which is a protein and supplement company, and you're an employee of theirs, it seems like, and you're also kind of one of their brand ambassadors / sponsored athletes, which, just to put the word out there, I just became one as well. So thanks for that. I'm really excited to be a part of the team. So you do that. You're also a nutritionist. So I presume that you might have clients that pay you for nutrition consulting or some type of meal plan and programming.
Yes.
Okay.
Combination.
And with that, you also do speaking engagements, whether it be workshops, clinics, seminars, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. So we're going on the right track here. You're also a certified personal trainer.
Yep.
Okay. So I presume that you might have clients that pay you to do training with them and write programming. You also do fitness modeling.
Yep.
And on top of all this, you have created a fitness product and program, or co-created, as it might be, called Clubz.
Yes.
And that is an entire company, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So that's a lot of shit. Am I leaving anything out?
I'm trying. I mean, I got a couple fun projects that I've been trying to be more focused on. I think the things that are moving me towards the bigger picture. Overall in the right direction. So all those things in my mind, I feel like complement one another. To explain, like, my biggest passion definitely is, just talking about the power of nutrition, really inspiring people to raise their standards and showing people the how, and how it can be fun, how it can be, pretty, it can be, habitual and just something that you do and get healthier and progress and so on. And then the fitness, has been my vehicle for it, to be, since I, naturally have been attracted to fitness and drawn into it, I've been able to use that to really, teach and build my platform to get my message across. So, those were my big, process. I'm trying to really brand myself just to do more workshops and eventually get, to doing some different retreats. But I mean, for the most part, that's where all my energy is going.
Cool. So let's back up a little bit here. Now that we know a lot of the things that you do, we'll get more specifically into those in just a bit. But tell me a little bit of your background. So I've not known you for that long, but I can already tell you know a shitload about how food interacts with your body and about nutrition. So how did you learn so much about that? Was that from school, some kind of certifications, classes? Like, give me, sort of your credentials of why you're so good at this stuff.
Yeah, so I initially started with just an absolute fascination in, a healthy human body. I grew up in Oregon, in more of a slightly hippie environment, at least I'd say an open-minded environment, more holistic style. My mom's side of the family, eating more green seaweed foods and just being open. I had an aunt that was definitely, a hippie that drove around a Volkswagen bus.
Nice.
Hey, Aunt Eva, if you're out there, what's up? She's living in Hawaii right now. So a big inspiration from health, just seeing the power of, using what's around us, that really just is natural, that can, help us. So that helped me be open-minded. And then, through athletics, realizing that food could, help you grow and help you perform better, led me down to actually study nutrition. So school, actually, I studied, business and ended up finishing, with more of that marketing, business and marketing, and then got into the corporate environment in my early 20s and was on like a work vacation. I was doing, medical sales, and I started reading a lot and looking into the self-development and positive psychology, and came across, just a bunch of I don't know what it was. It was some sort of calling that really pushed me into finding what my passion, my ultimate calling was. And it just came back to, like, I was never going to be satisfied unless I was doing something that I loved to do. I know it's really cliche, but it was, something in that fitness, nutrition type of world. And so I had some friends that had done different certifications and training, and I was already addicted to reading every, nutrition book and men's health and fitness and all those different, like, normal marketing types of things. And then there's a program through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition that that allows you to be a holistic health coach. And so I did that program, which is about a year long, and that just opened up the whole idea of what you do with it once you have it. So how to find information and how to use it, how to go out and do workshops and teach people, and really, find what your gift is, and then find a way to use it in the act of service. So I started a blog, and just getting a blog up there created this accountability of just getting new content, finding other people's problems, and trying to find a solution to them. And then that was over 6 years ago or so. I started making YouTube videos, and from there I'm just addicted to it. I mean, I spend an hour a day minimum. I mean, sometimes a lot more than that, just researching things, kind of seeing what's new. If somebody's saying turmeric is good for you, like why? Where do studies or interactions, prove this? Different proteins, and a lot of self-experimentation, so on myself and other guinea pigs around me, but finding really what works. How can you optimize your mind and brain? This whole, life hacking, brain hacking thing is so big right now. It's true. It's like, who doesn't want to be able to use their mind at a better level or their body at a better level? So let me back up and just hit on a few of those points. So you got a degree in business and marketing or something like that? Yeah. Okay. And then you went on to learn more about this. So one interesting thing, I was talking to one of my other guests, Steph Godreau from StupidEasyPaleo.com. And I asked her kind of where she gets information and stuff. And she made a really good analogy of talking about how the internet is just so filled with so much information, and it can be very overwhelming, and you don't always know where the information is coming from. And she actually said that she likes to kind of pick one or two or maybe more places and sort of follow these particular websites and kind of learn from them over time for one particular source, as opposed to like branching out and getting it from a bunch of different sources. And she made the correlation between that and like a training program. So, for me, I do CrossFit and I follow my gym's training program because if I was to jump around from gym to gym, the workouts wouldn't go together and it wouldn't have, the same effect as going to the same gym and going off of their program. So I think there's a lot of value in what she said, that it was really interesting to hear her perspective on that. And so now you're saying that you spend a lot of time reading and researching and stuff, and I was actually going to ask that later on, but I'll get to it now. So how do you continue this education? There's so much stuff out there. Like, what type of things are you looking for when you're doing this research online? Where do you go to find them? How do you sort of sort through all the stuff that's out there without getting overwhelmed and pick out the good stuff? And talk a bit about that. Absolutely. That's huge. I mean, it's something over time. I found myself getting so excited initially with information. I'd find out, acai berries or superfoods are good for you, and you'd go ramble it off all this information. I found myself just it was almost like I was regurgitating. It wasn't really truly digested information, and I was just talking about a lot of the claims because I was so excited. And so checking your references, like personally for me, I know I have a handful of mentors. There are medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, different blogs, books. A few of my favorite I'll name. People. I love people that do research hands-on, but are open-minded that there's no black or white type of information. So first off, when it comes to nutrition, I stand by this that, there's no definitive information that one thing is going to work for everybody. No one-size-fits-all approach. There's just way too many variables. But at the same time, don't let that overwhelm you. There's a lot of things that we do know. I think we can all agree that eating more vegetables and plant-based foods is not going to be bad for us. It's probably going to benefit us somewhat. And then avoiding, I should say, processed foods and sugared, loaded types of things are probably not going to benefit you. So those are vague enough that we could all nod our heads and say yes. That being said, I try to find people that have that same mentality, that do the research and have a digestible type of information they're putting out there. But I love, Charles Poliquin is a cool guy that's done a lot of research from, nutrition and blood sugar support and hormones and how foods can affect you from a performance standpoint. I like Paul Chek, a guy based out of Southern California who has a whole foundation where he trains people and really just to understand your body, how to learn to find your unique, answer to what style you should eat and lifestyle habits and so on. Dr. Mark Hyman is a doctor who's been getting a lot of limelight, worked on a lot of documentaries that talks a lot about blood sugar. And then blog-wise, I have a handful of different blogs where there's different people that contribute. The American Journal of Nutrition that posts a lot of different articles that are trending. I love just reading different publications that post something and then just tracking it down. Like, take a step further. Where did they get this source? Why did they want it? Like, what was the motive behind it? And you start to realize that a lot of people are scratching that itch of whether it's weight loss related, energy related, inflammation, and longevity, digestion. A lot of these things are all around the same issues. And so I try to find people that talk about the roots behind all these of why these issues are happening and not just talking about the quick fixes. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were kind of reading some of these books about psychology and sort of self-help type things and stuff.
Sure.
So without having talked about this before, like I could tell that you were one of these types of people that is really into that positivity. You're a positive person. You give off that energy. And as someone, hopefully I come off similar ways at times, at least, I've read a lot of self-help books and I know that they've had a huge impact on my life, and I really tried to live my life accordingly, So I saw that in you right away. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you is what types of books did you read or audio books or podcasts or, for me, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind was a huge game changer for me. And there was a handful of other ones, Tim Ferriss's.
Funny to add to that. I mean, just randomly, I didn't even know that, but I had came across that book specifically. It was probably, when is it? ASU. This was years ago. I had randomly started dating this girl, and her dad. She told me her dad was an author, and she's like, "Yeah, you should check out his book." And at the time, I was completely open-minded, but the title of the book kind of scared me off. She's like, "Yeah, he wrote this book about Millionaire Mind." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cheesy, whatever." She's like, "No, here, check it out." And I read it, and it was completely, overwhelming how much it opened up my mind with the idea that we have this blueprint in our mind.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
So you dated T. Harv Ecker's daughter?
Yes.
That's amazing.
What's up, T. Harv?
That is so sick. Did you ever meet him?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's so sick.
I did. Nice
Man,
guy.
Yeah, I wrote a blog post several years ago about how 2 books changed my life, and that was one of the 2 books. And eventually I might actually do like some kind of interim episode where I read that blog post as a podcast episode just to kind of put that information out there in a different format. But yeah, like you're saying, just completely change your view on so many things. And I could talk about that book for days. But that's really cool. So, okay, besides that book, which you dated his daughter.
Yeah, so to segue into that, I got some golden nuggets from him personally. He could relate to me and probably saw, somebody that grew up, I wouldn't say, underprivileged, or maybe you could call it that, but I definitely didn't have a golden spoon. I grew up sharing a room with my brother part of the time. We had a bunk bed. I slept on a couch for a long time. So, I definitely knew what it was like to struggle and want something that was a little bit better. But he said, he couldn't afford to go out and buy a bunch of books when he was younger, and he would just go to the bookstore and just read books. And he gave me that tip, and it really stuck to my head. It's like, read the profiles of people that have something you want. At the time, I didn't know exactly what my passion or my purpose was, but I wanted to have a better life that just had more opportunity and whatnot. And so, from there, I started getting into, I'd read actually a Napoleon Hill book first. Now, it wasn't Think and Grow Rich. It was Think and Grow Rich through persuasion, but it led me into Think and Grow Rich. And I know even that title kind of scares people away, but it's more about just living a more rich life. And from there, I got addicted to these quotes, and I kept coming across Ralph Waldo Emerson quotes just constantly, and you see people tag them all the time and this and that, and I was searching for Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay called Self-Reliance, and in that I came across this program called Philosopher's Notes. This is life-changing. Anybody I see, I try to recommend this program to them, and at the time I found it was think of Cliff Notes for the most influential books. And when I say influential books, think books on self-development, old school Dhammapada, Bhagavad Gita, to Think and Grow Rich, to new stuff like Wayne Dyer or Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or positive psychology like The How of Happiness, and The Power of Now, or Deepak Chopra stuff. And so I found this program, stumbled on it, and it was Cliff Notes of all these books.
Oh,
and
cool.
I happened to have a lot of time on my hands at the time. I'd taken a vacation. I was like, I'm just going to jump into this. And there were books I'd heard people reference to me, but I never sat down to have the time to read it, because to me, I just connected reading with work and stuff that I didn't need to do. But I was like, wow, these are some cool topics. And it's easy to pick up. It's 6 pages that I can read the big ideas from. But anyhow, without going crazy over it, that led me into reading. Please, check out the program. It's awesome. And it was cool because the program was free. That this guy had offered this scholarships, if you couldn't afford to do it. And it was just a game changer for really opening up my mind. But
what's the program called?
philosophersnotes.com. And his name's Brian Johnson. The guy, studied psychology at UCLA, started a tech business, sold it off, did pretty well, and went on a sabbatical to Bali and wanted to do something that was still more true to his vision of. So he took 100 of the books that he thought were very influential and did Cliff Notes of all of them. He spent a year doing 6-page PDFs and MP3 recordings. So it just made it super convenient. And like without thinking about it, there's a challenge. It was like 50 in 50 days. And it's like, yeah, I could spare a half hour a day while I'm going around listening to it or whatever. And I read a bunch of books that I never would have read, like including Joseph Campbell, Companion Guide, different books that really helped me find my passion. So I love books on positive psychology. Like, why is there a recipe that people are more happy, have more energy? And if there is, it's like, how can we adopt those habits? And there's a lot of the stuff that's in our control.
Tell me again one more time the name of the thing. I'll put it in the show notes on the website so people can go find it. Philosopher's
Notes is the program.
Okay.
And I believe now it's hosted with Entheos, the words ENTHEOS, entheos.me. And I mean, if you YouTube the guy, you can see Brian Johnson. The guy's just like, his energy is contagious. He's just giving awesome information to people. They can do with it as they please. And it's been absolutely life changing for me to just. And he had the books on like health and nutrition, and books on, like I said, positive psychology, financial type of stuff. And I came across a quote, and this is totally related to this. It was like, it was by someone, and it was life is about the pursuit of knowledge, and if you're a kid and you hear that, you probably laugh at it, but it's true. The more you know in any field, the more you're going to understand things, the less you're going to get upset, and there's a reference to the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Like the little things really hit me hard at that time to open it up, like don't take things personal, and so just a really cool journey.
Yeah, awesome. I'll definitely check that out myself, and I'll put it in the show notes on the expansionprojectpodcast.com. So this is going to go over an hour long. I keep looking at this timer, and I'm just like, man, we've got some good stuff going on here, and it happens every episode. But I think that's a good problem to have, because it means I'm having good conversations. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to keep talking, and unless you have to leave, we're just going to keep rolling.
No, let's roll with it.
Because this podcast is mainly for me. I'm putting it out there for other people, and hopefully they want to hang out and listen. But if not, then at least you and I are at least having cool conversations. So let's go back to that long laundry list of stuff that you're involved in.
Sure.
So you've got the job at Nutrisuma. Real briefly, tell me kind of what your role is there as an employee.
I'm more of a contractor that I do, I'd say, more consulting and marketing type of work. So I'm currently not a direct employee. I'm helping build it, trying to build the branding. It's a company that I've been working with for over 5 years, and I just saw the potential in them. The guys have a ton of integrity that created the product. There's reasoning why they designed every single formula. The formulator goes through crazy amounts of studying and testing, for the relevance behind it. And I just thought it was a cool fit. I was using it a lot because I quit using dairy, and the pea protein was awesome. And so that I pretty much came to them, and I was like, look, let me help you market, the product, get it out there more. And, through time they've grown, and there's been a lot of cool opportunities. And so now I'm just trying to help build the popularity of building a community around it to get some exposure.
Cool. Okay. So moving on to the next bit of stuff is how do you kind of divide your time and energy between all these things that you do? So sort of break down maybe a day or a week or even a month, or just kind of tell me how you spread yourself out between the Nutrisumma work. Like you said, you're contracted with them. You do personal training. You've got, your seminars and your nutritionist type stuff you got going on, and the company that we haven't got to yet that we're going to talk about real soon.
Sure.
So how do you split up that time and energy?
I take a look, typically a snapshot of like what the month looks like, and thankfully, since I have a lot of stuff going on, which would probably make some people's heads spin, it's all stuff that I love to do. And I'm at an ability where I can say no to more things that allows me to say yes to the things that I like to do. And what I mean by that is, like, I can take a look at a month and I'll put out my schedule for events. The highest priority is, what is going to allow me to have the ability to keep on doing what I'm going to do. So I have to take care of my financials, but also like making sure I'm moving in the right direction of building my brand and progressing forward. So like workshops, how can I get in front of the most amount of people and teach what I love to do, like teaching, healthy culinary nutrition and teaching, motivation of just raising people's standards with health. So I'm going to book those events because I know that, those are things I could charge the most for and reach the most amount of people. And then from there, I have regular clients that I work with that, I let them know what my schedule is going to be like, and I allow them to really book like what they're going to do. So I have some clients that I work with once a week, some, a couple times per week, some athletes that travel that I work with, when they're, back in Arizona or Southern California. And from there, I just try to fill up as much events as possible. So that goes the same thing with nutrition and training clients. Like I have clients that I do a lot of work monitoring people's like nutrition plans and, from the computer, calling people, arranging it that way. But then just staying open-minded to, how can I build the brand through PR stuff? So can I book some television appearances? Can I book more of these workshops? So that, building those big events and then filling in the time that I can with clients, but making sure I'm staying true to myself and not overdoing it. Because, there's times where, I might work with 5 or 6 clients in a day, but that doesn't leave me with any time for, for future planning or as far as like prospecting new business. So it's like you have to stick to what, really makes sense for you. And it takes some management. And I mean, I've gone through a roller coaster of ups and downs of, where it's great and then it dries up and then it gets great. And it's good. It's very consistent now. And I can be a little more picky with things.
Yeah, that's good. So with Nutrisuma, do you have to go into an office on a regular basis? Do you report to somebody on a regular basis? Are you working 100% remotely for them?
No, I do go into the office. They have a couple offices in the Phoenix location, and I I'd like to say I spend a day or two in there more planning, but it's more project based. I think my value with them is out interacting with people and sharing and showing the project. So, I deal with one of the owners directly, and I have a team of guys that I work with, guys and girls. I'm just really trying to build the brand in the community, but a lot of it is just is juggling everything else that I'm doing.
So let's talk about your personal brand a little bit. Your website is, I was a little bit confused because the URL that I go to is ArizonaHealthClub.com, and you've got a few URLs that kind of all link back to the same place. So I know from a tech aspect of running websites and building them myself and stuff that can eventually become a nightmare when like you've got one name, you're trying to transfer to a different name, like it redirects here, like what's the whole deal? So why Arizona Health Club as the domain name, and what's kind of like the main overall umbrella brand that you're trying to get across?
Yeah, initially, my initial vision was same thing. I always wanted to just build a bigger name in the community of, being a guru in training of like kind of the go-to source. I love trying to help people or being able to offer a solution to people's problems. And it being in Arizona, a friend of mine had bought that domain years ago, and I talked to him about just a project that I wanted to do, and he let me use this. Gosh, this was probably back in 2009ish or so. I started just doing some blogs. I talked about my journey to plant-based eating and did a documentary thing called Plant-Based Jason of like, what it's like to be plant-based. Where do you get all your protein and all these, silly questions that you hear. And then my brand name when I registered LLC and everything was going to be Active Mind and Body, because I thought that it just represented, an active mind progressing forward, but the health perspective as well. And so I thought that would be easy marketing purposes to have Active MB. So I had that domain, and that's where I market the most. It goes back and forth. But now it's like I travel a lot to where it's not just Arizona Health Club. I initially interviewed different gyms, so I was trying to build this community where it would all come back, onto my website, based around Arizona. But obviously, you realize the potential of trying to expand. And so that's where I was, trying to roll that over to the Active MB. And I haven't run into a big issue with it yet, but I'm trying to build the whole Active Mind and Body name, so it's not like ego-based and built around my name.
Right.
Because I want to work with people collectively together and build different workshops and grow it.
Yeah. So you mentioned booking some TV appearances and stuff, and I've seen a handful of YouTube videos where it looks like you were on some kind of morning news show, presumably in Arizona.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of on set with the lady, and you're showing her, for example, how to make the MTC bites and stuff. So is that getting on morning news or afternoon, whatever it is, evening news, whatever it might be? Is that you kind of going out and marketing yourself and going to the television station saying like, hey, like, let me do this cool thing on air? Like, how does that work? That's kind of cool.
It all started with through the integrative nutrition program that they recommended that you volunteered, your time to get your name out there. It's the only way that you're really going to share your gift or whatever it is. And I get so passionate about it. And people are like, more people need to see what you're talking about or see your energy. And so I just became my own PR agent. And, I'd sent emails to some different, news companies, didn't get a lot of feedback. And then luckily I had a client of mine, Gabe Bertuccini, who has an awesome business called Culinary Mischief, where he does these big dinners all over the place. And he had a regular bit on Channel 3, made an introduction. I told them what I was about and told them I was trying to be Dr. Oz in training. And, they got me on for a segment, and it turned into a regular basis. And so now it's usually, once or twice a month. And it's just me sharing my opinion on different health trends or recipes or sharing a workout. And then those have all been pretty much booked myself. We had a PR group that helped us somewhat with our Clubz, my other business, which I'll get to, doing more appearances. We've done more in the Midwest and on the East Coast. So it's just the more I do it, the more I get comfortable, behind TV, and there's a huge impact as far as reaching people there.
Yeah. Tell me, let's get to the nitty-gritty details of how that looks on your end of reaching out to a television station and kind of getting that booked. Like, walk me through that process, because I've never done anything like that. It seems really like a good idea. Hey, maybe I'll do it myself. But, what does that look like on your end?
It's cool. You have to look at the perspective of wherever you're trying to be featured. So if this is a publication or a television thing, like, how can you make it as easy as possible for them? And I'm just a curious person, and I had, through modeling type of stuff, I'd get booked to be an extra doing fashion stuff or fitness stuff in the past. And somehow these scripts and things like that would end up, I'd be linked in or CC'd on an email. And I remember seeing one that was like, it was a proposal that was just sent to the news company saying, like, here's what our segment is going to be. It makes it really easy. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them. Like, I want to talk about, healthier breakfast or a fitness trend that's easy to do for busy individuals. Here's what it's going to involve. And so it's like they have a story that's already done for them. You've made their work really easy. You let them know that you have experience, and you ask for the opportunity. And believe it or not, I mean, it's pretty easy to get people to reply back to you. And if you can show them you've had experience, which you can build that, you can create something and get it moving from there. It's just staying on top of actually prospecting, getting out to these people who are pretty busy. So I say look at their perspective, because this is a busy person who doesn't want to, like, interview you and say, well, what do you have to offer? You got to pitch these people of, like, how you're going to make their job easier. And that should be with whatever business you're doing. How are you making people's lives better or easier by what you're doing? And so find who you need to get to, and realize there's going to be a gatekeeper. There's probably going to be someone that says no automatically. But first, are those the person who are the decision makers? So find who the decision maker is, send them something that is appealing to them, make it easy for them, and you'll find that I think it's pretty easy that way. Most people are scared that they don't have anything that they will, have that adds value or whatever the case. But if you have something that adds value, I mean, you've watched the news. There's all kinds of silly stuff out there.
Yeah. Man, that's really, really interesting, and it's something I'm very familiar at on a different different level or just a different platform, right? And it's just fascinating to hear it from a different perspective like that. And my mind is just kind of racing over here, just like, fuck, man, new ideas, like not only for myself, but for other people, I've got a friend that's a coach and a trainer over here, and he's got a cool little, program going on at the gym. It's like, dude, you could easily have the news come and do a piece on your thing if you presented it like you're saying, But
I have to add to something that really quick, and this is what happens, and like you'll get so busy. For example, when I was doing just training, there's times I'd have 5, 6, 7 clients a day. It's overwhelming. Like I'd have a first client at like 6 a.m. and I'd work with my last client at 8 because I didn't want to say no to that money that I needed to survive and thrive. But you do that, and then it's taken away from that creative time with high energy that you have to prospect and like realize, how do you take this to the next level? I've met incredible trainers who know way more than I do when it comes to training, yet they're so busy that they're just flooded with awesome clients and they haven't had a chance to expand yet. So maybe that's where you have to bring in somebody that's already done that and pay them to be a consultant for you or whatnot. And that's an option you can do. You can find a PR agent that really just looks at your brand and sees, how can you grow this? Otherwise, how's it going to get done?
Right. So I'll just go ahead and tell one of my stories of how I did something really similar to get my foot in the door of what ended up becoming my first job in the real world, my only job in the real world, and what really set me up for the success I've had in my career. So when I was in college, I wanted to work for Ride BMX Magazine. That was the dream job right out of high school. And eventually I started having to learn how to shoot photos and became decent enough at it, and I would send a few photos here and there to the magazine, and every time I would get rejected. And then I realized that their website that I went to every once in a while just didn't have very much content on it. But every couple of weeks they would put up a gallery of photos of like 8 images of just random BMX photos, and they would call it like Monday Gallery or something. And eventually, after getting shut down so many times of sending photos to the magazine and not having them published, I was like, hey, well, how about you take these 8 images and you make a Monday gallery? Like you do that every once in a while, but not that often. How about I provide the photos for that gallery? You don't need to pay me, and I'm just happy to, do this. And every time I sent them, I would, write captions. I would, make sure to proofread, and I would be like, okay, is this Word document the way you need it formatted? Should I send it in the body of an email? Should I format the size differently? Like, do you need me to include multiple sizes? Like, tell me exactly what you need me to do to make it the easiest as possible on your end, so that it's a no-brainer for them to just be like, oh, here's a done job. Like, let's go ahead and pop it in place on the website. And I did that, a good number of times. And then eventually I was like, hey, I'm going to go to a competition in Florida. Can I shoot photos of the competition and send it to you guys and maybe write a little article to go with it? So instead of just a Monday gallery, it was now like a little competition report. What do you know? Right before I graduated college, the editor of the magazine called me and said, hey, we're opening up a job for an online web editor. Do you want that job? So I literally opened the door for myself, and that's part of the long drawn out story of how I got a job of working my dream job at Ride BMX Magazine. So I totally get where you're coming from of making it easy as possible on the person you're trying to deal with, because they're busier than you and you're the one trying to get something from them,
Yeah.
And I've seen that a lot too on like the athlete sponsorship side. I've worked with a lot of professional riders, helping them deal directly with potential sponsors or whatever. And some guys kind of like want the sponsors to come to them. But if you present them with an opportunity of like, hey, here I am, like I'm a total package, like everything that you need is already in place, like will you sponsor me? Things can start to happen.
I got to add to that really quick. I love that you said that. You pointed out the idea that you had to open up your own door. And it's like if you decide to make up your mind that you want anything, whatever it is, I know it sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. It's like you are going to run through some instances of you hear that word no, but it's not no. It's, you just got to hear it as not yet. And what do you need to do differently? And it's like with everything I've done through self-experimentation with nutrition and everything, it's like I probably first did something that was stupid or didn't work or was too much of an extreme or whatever the case was. But it's like if you decide this is what I'm doing, you'll find people that have done a similar path. You can chase, success leaves footprints. And so you can find a way what needs to be done if you want to. And I love that. You send in pictures, and instead of saying, well, they don't like my stuff, I'm done, you kept doing it until you put the pieces together of like, okay, what do I need to do? And then moved on. So that's awesome.
So let's move on to talk about your business here. So for 60 seconds or less, you're a salesman. You sell me on your business. I've never heard of your company. Tell me the name of your company, what it is, and sell me on what your business is.
Oh, beach body in 20 minutes a day, for guaranteed in 6 weeks. No. Clubz Fitness is a at-home DVD training program that's based off of a concept called the Indian Clubs. And so we patented an at-home version. The easiest way to think about this is it's similar to a kettlebell, where the exercise tool becomes an extension of your body and, creates extra work for your body. In that process of doing body weight movements like squats and lunges and kettlebell swing type of movements, you're constantly engaging your core. It's functional, it's low impact, and it can be done using efficient training, high intensity interval style training.
Perfect. So now everybody knows what it is. I just, I've known you for a little while. We haven't had in-depth conversations like this before. So of course I was doing a little research on you before the interview here. And I didn't find out about this company until I think maybe even last night. And so I was kind of blown away. I didn't know that you had a company at all. And looking at the website, it looks very professional, very official.
Yeah. Thank you.
But and so I don't want to just suck up to every guest here. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to give some of my own input and stuff. So for me, right away, it looked, very similar, like you said, like Beachbody, like, Billy Blanks, like other at-home workout type things. And when I was, 16 in high school and wanted to try to get a six-pack, I bought, the little ab roller thing that was like, this wireframe metal tube or whatever that you roll on the ground.
Jump shoes. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So, I bought like, the ab roller and the DVD and stuff. So I've done those before. And this is another variation of that. And so for me, I looked at it and I was like, it's a little bit, and please, I don't want to offend anybody here. Kind of gimmicky, maybe, like, it's a niche type of thing, and it can potentially look like one of these things that, people buy because they get excited about the infomercials, and then maybe they don't do it for, a while. With that said, I think there's a lot to be said of, it can definitely work. Like, I've never done the exercises or whatever, the workouts, but I can look at it and I can tell that it can get results if you consistently do it.
Sure.
So I think with your product, like as a, just a non-biased party outside looking in, I'm like, okay, if somebody took this and had fun with it and was, enjoyed it enough to stick with it, they could absolutely see results, So I don't know where I'm going with this monologue. I'm just kind of giving you, like,
no, absolutely. And I mean, it's something I battled with initially. I mean, having a marketing background, it's hard to sell just future happiness or preventive nutrition or something like that. And that's where my heart is at. But this was an opportunity that I feel like I didn't want to pass up because I knew it would be a great vehicle. I'd worked with these guys in the past when we developed the product. But the way I looked at it is like, having a marketing background, there's hype around it. You got to make a claim, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I can't just tell you like, this might work or whatever. It's like you have to get people pumped up, and as cheesy as it is, it works, and we're constantly selling our ideas. And there's so many people that have incredible ideas that aren't selling them enough and not getting them across, and they end up taking them with them to the graveyard or whatnot. And not that this is the revolutionary idea, but the idea is creating a system. And so I had worked as an extra on this kettlebell project that did really well. It was called KettleWorks, and one of the developers of that program had kept my number. We stayed in touch, and he was interviewing people to help develop this new program, a few years later. And I looked at it as a really cool opportunity. I bought into it. I believed it. I got to develop and take all my favorite exercises, for the busy individual, like these 20-minute workouts using Tabata intervals and things that were really efficient, package it all up, create a DVD program, custom products, like build it from start to finish. And in my mind, I said, worst case scenario, I get experience from it. This guy's done this before. He's done really well with it. And it was a fun project. I dedicated, a couple, year and a half or so developing and getting it all done and coming up with a marketing plan, and totally believed that it was going to grow and blow up. And, I'm still behind it. It probably didn't take off quite as fast as I, initially hoped for. But, that being said, I tried to keep it as real as possible. People that know me, and see serious pictures of my face and everything on there, kind of call me out for it and laugh. But at the same time, I'm super proud of the work that we put into it, and it works. But that being said, like I said, going back to the beginning, it's a system. If you stick to something for 6 weeks, I mean, if you drink 12 ounces of water every morning when you wake up, I promise you in a few weeks, you're going to be healthier than, probably what you're doing before then. So this just gives people a good routine for at-home individuals that are still ordering this type of stuff. And we've been able to teach trainers on how to use it in different gyms. I've had a handful of gyms, pick it up. So it's been fun.
That's cool. It's funny, like you're saying, like friends will call you out and stuff, that people that know you. And that's kind of where I'm coming from is like, I knew you as XYZ person, and now I'm seeing this kind of other side of you where it's, sort of like you said, the hype and the, maybe a little bit cheesy if you want to say that, just because there is a lot of hype behind it, and it's the DVD, and, I think anybody listening to this can probably visualize, people in a gym doing a workout, and you're kind of like the hype man, like, come on, you got this, like that whole hype behind it, So that's kind of where I was coming from with that as well, just kind of calling you out because, I viewed you as somebody that's super passionate, super positive, has a lot of knowledge and everything, and so it's just interesting for me to see that other side of you. But what I'm really interested in is the actual business part of it,
Sure. Sure.
And so aside from whatever the product might be, I'm just always fascinated by business stuff. So I know you have a partner, at least one partner with it. Tell me how the kind of partnership was built there to start this company.
So, like I said, I had worked as an extra on this kettlebell project that did really well. I mean, it was undeniable. You could see the numbers. The product got into Target, it was on all over online, and so on. And I had helped promote it, but I mean, I didn't have any ownership in that at all whatsoever. And being a young whippersnapper that was ambitious, I had talked to everybody I could when I had worked with these guys. And I said, if you have any future opportunities, let me know. How can I contribute? I can help with the nutrition program. I can be a stand-in. I can help with this or that. And that helped. I mean, I followed up. That's a big thing is like, following up with people. Just say, hey, I was thinking about you,
Right.
A year went by, and I think I spoke with, at the time, the developer's wife and just stayed in touch, maybe through social media or whatever the case, just to let them know what I was doing, that I was still making YouTube videos and doing things. And then maybe another a year went by, and they said that they had a new project in mind, and that it was going to be new, something different, and it was going to need somebody to help coach the whole program. Asked my experience, and I let them know. I wanted to give them the answer they wanted to hear. Said that I teach people and I'd be comfortable doing whatever it was. And they went through an interview process of trying to find the right person, and they had chosen to work with me. And it was a sweat equity type of thing, to where I was going to help develop this program, and I would get ownership that way. We negotiated back and forth to where I was going to be compensated for my time that it was going into it, but at the same time would have ownership, which I needed to think about that. Like, as much as I love training, it's like I couldn't train 6 clients a day. You get burnt out on that overall. I'd rather try to be more impactful, and so this to me was an opportunity that could reach a lot of people.
Right.
And so it was cool. We decided to move on, work with the project, and it was immediately seeing how a business was built firsthand. So we formed the corporation. We got to draw out what it was going to look like, the concept of the product, building the plan, building all the exercises. And I really had a good vision of what this would look like, because I'd seen what they'd done before, and it really kept the excitement of just having a goal. And then this guy, super spot on, business dude that just handled everything right, where I was kind of all over the place. I was a creative guy, but he was very analytical, and if we set a goal for something, we would get it done, and it helped me so much. And finished the project, pretty close to the time that our goal was to do it.
How old were you at this time?
20. I was probably 26.
Okay.
Yeah. 25 or 26. And I mean, huge amount of excitement, because I started just buying the idea, if this, and I wasn't even saying when this was going to blow up. I was like, I wasn't even saying if, I was saying when. I was like, so when this blows up in the next year and a half, 2 years, I was already thinking about, where I was going to travel, how I was going to promote it, where I was going to go, all these different things. And it helped. It made me, I would journal about it and just be like, this is, my multi-million-dollar project. And I treated it like that. I treated every time we developed a move or practicing of what it was going to look like on video, I did my research, and I hope it shows off that way.
Yeah.
And I treated it that way, and I was really trying to manifest and cultivate it into something big. And we finished it all up, started promoting it. Our initial, we raised capital, by the way, so we wanted to keep it safe and not use all of our own money, which I definitely didn't have all that own money myself.
Right.
And so we did a bridge loan, which basically allows the capital that you raise. So let's say we raised $250,000 to fund the filming, the time, the product, manufacturing, all this, and then you give the investors an opportunity to be able to trade in for the best possible stock advantage, or they can cash out, whatever the case is. And so, some of those guys exchanged in, which showed their interest, that they believed in it as well. That created momentum. And then once it went live, we had a big distribution list that we wanted to take advantage of from the former business. But the email addresses, some of them were old, and we didn't do as well as we wanted. So we went after different social media channels, raised a little bit more capital, did some infomercial stuff, and so it's gaining momentum. And we have some cool opportunities that are coming up. Some potential television PR work that I think should get it moving in the right way.
Nice. And were you involved in the process of raising the capital and the investment money?
Somewhat. I was involved in trying to recruit and find it, but I went about it in a total different way. I even studied, business administration classes and things like that, how to do a business plan and all this, but seeing it hands-on is so much different. It's like Shark Tank. I would talk about it with some potential clients that had money, and, I wanted them to be honest. They'd say, yes, no, this needs this. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And so he had that all set up of what it would look like. And again, it was just telling people what they want to hear. It's how is this going to be return on their money and look good and be easy and make sense? And so he drew this all up, got all the legal forms, put everything together, which was really cool to see, all the legal stuff that went behind it. And I think that built the credibility of it. So I helped prospect people. It was him doing the majority of it and packaging it all up and making it look really good. Yeah.
I would imagine that, especially at that young of age too, that going through that whole process from start to finish has got to be just an incredible learning experience. And if and when you decide to, work on another project, another company like that, you've just got all this experience to draw back on of, like you said, developing the product, developing the program, filming the DVDs. I'm sure you were involved somewhat in editing the DVDs and, making the program, marketing, the whole deal, It just seems like such a good learning experience.
It was incredible. It was like going to school. I mean, yeah, from the production, using, obviously we wanted to pick people like our production crew that we had experience working with Beachbody and some of these other bigger videos. And so we got to pick people that already knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And, we paid a premium price to work with some of these types of people. But I learned first on like how to spend money and spend money the right way. Like if you're going to invest in somebody or something, get as much as you can out of it and like find a way that it benefits all the parties in it. So I learned a lot how to prevent wasting time and wasting money and just really mapping things out. And like when you detail these different goals, it's more likely to happen than compared to saying like, oh, I want to do this or, so writing this all down, we saw it mapped out, our time frame. It was incredible learning experience. And, so it's like I still, even if it crashed and burned, God forbid, I'm still so stoked that like I got to experience this and I can take that value to consult with another project or so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where's the company at now? Like what stage are you guys at? Obviously everything's up and running. I checked out the website. You've got tons of videos on there. It's a finished product. It's out there. What's the next step for that company?
Yeah, we're live in sales. We initially did some test markets through infomercials, and I mean it's a pay to play field, which can get extremely expensive. I mean, just to give you guys an idea, our goal is we researched companies like Zumba and Beachbody, and the Chuck Norris exercise machine that, like, believe it or not, is making like $500 million.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much money they spend into marketing. Like Beachbody and P90X stuff, probably spends upwards of $40 to $50 million in marketing,
Wow.
So their goal, but you got to think from a numbers perspective, if you can make $51 million in profit, that's probably worth it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's, or $1 million in profit, whatever the case is. So that, it's an expensive arena to enter. So we're trying to take more of what's changed in the last few years, doing more stuff online. Our sales are really steady. We find a lot of value from doing these PR appearances. So it's like we do a news appearance, in the Midwest, it could be Chicago or whatever. We could directly see how this drew traffic to our site online, and then it's from there. It's like, how can you get these people to actually want to buy the project? So when they click on there, you have a limited amount of time to make it appealing to people to buy. And so we're trying to master that process. Still trying to raise some more capital to do, some bigger marketing projects. But it's moving in the right direction. Like I said, I probably wanted it to move a little bit faster, but
when was the launch of the company?
We launched it at the beginning of 2014.
Okay, cool.
So, I mean,
and so is this something that you're still kind of actively involved with the back end of the business on a daily or weekly, monthly basis?
Yeah. I'm not as active on a daily basis as far as like prospecting and doing PR work. I'm still trying to build my brand a lot, but like we have a television opportunity thing that might be coming up, that I would be involved in, and so I'm putting my time wherever it makes sense, and I still believe in it, but on a daily basis, I'm definitely looking out for the interest of my personal brand, and I mean, it's no doubt that my biggest passion is behind nutrition.
Yeah, got it. Man, we could just keep talking forever, but we don't have forever. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. No, you know what? I want to talk about one project that I did like that was a learning experience. And this is definitely going to be the first time I've ever publicly talked about this. And whoever downloads this podcast is going to get to hear something that very few people have ever heard. I went through a big learning process that didn't ever launch. So when I worked at the magazine, I've been away from the magazine 3 years. So this was probably between 5 and 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I was approached by a producer that lived in Canada because somebody that rode Flatland BMX was friends with her, and she got turned on to this type of BMX riding, and she was like, hey, I think this can be a great television show, but you know a little bit about BMX and editing, but you don't know about the business side of BMX. So who do you know within the BMX industry that's kind of savvy to like business type ideas? Somehow I didn't even know this guy, but he recommended me. She reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm a producer. I live in Canada. I've got an idea that I'd like to talk to you about. Are you willing to hear me out? I talked to her, and like right away I was like, ding, ding, ding. And what she was talking about was a television show idea, kind of reality television, like competition, Survivor meets, UFC, like Ultimate Fighting, whatever, that kind of thing. And light bulbs went off, and, one of my first international trips ever was to a giant flatland competition in Tokyo, Japan. And as I was in this arena shooting photos, I was just like, man, this could be a fucking television show. Like, this is such a cool environment. Like, if the right people saw this, it could blow up, but the right people aren't here, And I'd never thought to myself, like, well, I could do something like that, And all it took was one producer who had never even produced a full television series. She's produced other types of video projects and stuff. She reached out, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. And we kind of became partners, and just over Skype and instant messaging and emails and stuff, we worked for about a year and a half to develop a television show idea, to the point where we had, a video like trailer kind of thing done up. And through my graphic design and photography background, I was able to put together not just like a simple PDF, but an entire book, like a 40-page book with like, tons of text, like, show episode breakdowns, and we had contacted all these writers that were interested in doing it. They all signed non-disclosures and stuff. And we had everything laid out, proposed budgets and these kind of things. And she flew down from Canada, and we met with a couple lawyers and, accountants and different people. And then it was like, okay, how do we try to pitch this thing? And we went to everywhere we could. And unfortunately, it's just one of these things. And at the time, there wasn't Netflix and Hulu doing original content necessarily. And Fuel TV was like just on the verge of kind of getting away from action sports and going towards all MMA. And so, we pitched it around, and we met with a handful of people. I got connected to a bunch of really interesting people through that experience, but it basically landed flat. Everybody was like, yeah, this is a great idea, but there's no place for it, or it's too big of an idea as far as budget goes, or, it's not right for these networks and stuff. And there's really just no good home for it. But with that said, like I said, I worked for like a year and a half, and of course I still had a full-time job, but there was many, many days over that time where I would wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. and do 2 or 3 hours of work and get on Skype calls with her for 2 hours before I even went to my full-time job, and come home and do it all over again until like 9 o'clock at night. And, to this day, in person, I've had this conversation with maybe 10, 15 people. And I've never, mentioned anything about it publicly online or anything else like that. And the book and the DVD and trailer, again, like maybe 10, 15 people besides the people that we actually like pitched it to, have ever seen the thing. So it's kind of just,
I gotta see it now.
I'll show it to you after the show. It's in a file cabinet in my office, and just kind of tucked away. And, for a couple years we were like, you know what, maybe the time's going to be right eventually, and maybe we'll pitch it back out there again. Maybe it'll have a home. And then after a while, you get to the point where it's like, okay, you've kind of exhausted your resources, cut your losses, chalk it up to being an amazing learning experience and a growing experience. I think this is what those self-help books people talk about when they say, you never actually fail. It's always just a learning experience. And it's true. Like, if people were to ask me, like, how have you failed in your life or something like that, I would never pop up that, time investment of mine as a failure by any means. Like, sure, I never made a fucking TV show, and I never made a dime off of it, and I'm sure I lost money out of my own pocket, and I certainly lost a lot of time, but I would never think of that as a failure just because it didn't actually go through. You know what I mean? So there you have it. A long, interesting story of my life.
I love that perspective. I mean, I got to highlight, that's such a perfect example. Find something that wakes you up early in the morning, that keeps you up at nighttime, that gets you excited, and go after it. No matter what it is, so you can find, so you don't leave that mystery of what if. And I think that's like the biggest fear that I have is like, what if, there it is. What years go by, and it's like, what if I would have done that or done that? Like, don't allow that to even be an issue.
Yeah. Cool. So we're going to get through some of these quick hit questions before we wrap up here. Normally I say you can make them a little bit longer, but this time we'll try to keep them quick. And these are questions that I ask a lot of my guests, the same questions. So I'm going to ask you, what are one or two things that you do to either simplify your life or eliminate stress or clutter? And before you answer, I'm actually going to give this question a new wording, because I've noticed that when I tell it to people, I don't really get the responses that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So maybe a better question is, do you have any life hacks? And for me, and I'll just give you one or two examples of what I do, and maybe it'll spark an idea in your head. Maybe you have nothing, but for me, I have a car key and I have house keys and a mailbox key or whatever, and I keep them together, but they're on this like little thing that can like pop off. Like you press a little button and it separates the two. So that way, if I'm just going to walk the dog, I don't bring my car key with me.
Genius.
And when I'm driving, I don't have the keys dangling down, like hitting my knees, and I just put the keys in my little ashtray or whatever. Also, not that I've ever lost keys, knock on wood, but if I was to lose my keys when I go to walk the dog, I wouldn't lose my only car key. If I was to lose my keys, my car key, then I wouldn't lose my house keys or whatever. And it's just a way for me to kind of make things a little more simple. And also, I wear tighter jeans. I don't want like a giant key bulge or whatever. So when I, am driving or whatever and get out my car, I only have my car key stuffed in my jeans pocket. So this is just one of my personal little quote-unquote life hacks. I don't really like that term, but it gets the point across, I guess. So this is just something that I do to simplify my life and kind of eliminate like extra, clutter and stuff. So do you have anything like this?
ABC Lululemon pants. That's what it is. That's I would say just that golden hour in the morning of planning ahead and how I do it, the tools I use. I mean, I journal a lot. So ideas I have.
Is this in an actual book or is it on a computer?
No, I journal on my phone. So I was going to say I use my notepad. It's on my iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
I use that, and then that links up with my computer. So if I always have a fresh idea, and I always look at my notepad. So it's like I have a reminder idea. I have workshops for my ebook. I'll have like a recipe, example, or idea. So I have different ideas that are always synced up, whatever, through my iPhone and my computer, and I review it, and I can take pictures and put that on there as well. So it's like, imagine if I found a link online or I'm somewhere and I see a recipe I like, I'll take a picture and put it there, and I just review it. It's super simple, but I make a habit of reviewing it in the morning, every morning, and see where I'm at, and it never really gets backed up, and it's allowed me to remember to look up new books and call people and try new recipes. And I give it a credit to where my fascination comes for like eating and new recipes. Like I constantly trying to redo things myself.
Yeah. So this is just on the notepad that's built in the app?
It's super simple. I mean, I have a notepad. I have different categories. Every time I enter something, it goes to it's updated to my computer as well, and I just review it on a regular basis. It's super simple, but it's kind of like a to-do list, but it's more of like an action reminder list.
I do the exact same thing, and the reason I asked about the app is because I know I've heard other people, Tim Ferriss actually, his podcast talks about Evernote and some of these things, but I just use the notes, and I do the same thing.
I've tried Evernote, and I do it with clients if I want to see what they're eating because it's better for pictures and so on, but to me, it's just keep it simple. Do what you'll actually do is my opinion there.
Yeah, for sure. Next question on the quick hits list. Have you had any mentors throughout your life? And if so, tell me about that relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, one of some of the mentors I probably haven't even met. I mean, I've had mentors, like I said, the author.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to back up because you did mention an ebook in your last response, and we hadn't talked about that yet. But I like how you slyly threw in an ebook.
I forgot to. Cause I was thinking in my mind of like other big projects. That's taking up so much time. I've done so many workshops that like people always ask like, do you have a cookbook or a recipe book? And it's like I've created little mini ones that just have recipes and send them to people when I do these workshops. But like people have asked me so much, and I realize that I need to do it to have a product out there. So it's something I commit to having done. It should be done by the end of this month. It's an ebook that it's kind of like a choose your own adventure guide of not too many recipes, like 20 of my favorite recipes, but then like how to make them different. So how to make them so you'll like them. The whole title is Making Healthy Taste Good. So how can you make healthy, the whole lifestyle type of it healthy? It's just really clean, fun, visual friendly guide. Handbook, you can say, to enjoying the process.
Awesome. And is that going to be sold on your website? Or is that
I'm probably just going to have it as like I may charge a few dollars for it or something. My email list. But I mean, I've put in so much time into it. I've been writing it for a couple different versions of it for I feel like a couple years, and now this is something I'm going to be really happy with, and hopefully it leads to a bigger project. But just getting it done is huge for me by the end of this month.
Yeah. We're jumping all over the place here, but I don't really give a fuck. So I've got to ask now that we talked a little bit more about the financial thing, or that just kind of came up, which I think you should charge for the ebook. I've heard a lot of people, even if you charge $1, and also I've heard too, maybe $1's too cheap, because I've heard the concept or ideals or whatever you want to call it, that if you have a free concert, people might go and show up for 5 minutes and leave because they didn't pay for it. They're not invested in it.
Sure.
So maybe if you charge $5 or $10, like they're going to be more invested in it. They're going to want to use it more.
I agree.
So I don't know. I think you should charge for it, and that's good residual income. And obviously you've read a lot of these same like financial and self-help books, so you know all about the
bought
residual
so many
income.
ebooks. I bought it. I paid money for it because to me it's like a learning thing. If
Yeah.
I'll pay $20 for a book if I can learn something from it that I can take value to. And I've bought a lot of them where I'm really not impressed. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a very optimistic person, but I've bought books. And that really is like, wow, this person just took a dump in their computer and saved it as a PDF. Awesome. Like, I should be doing this type of thing. And I mean that from a positive place. It's like if you got something to share with the world, you know, somebody's going to hopefully appreciate it.
Yeah. So I've got to ask, too, going back to the financials, you know, not necessarily talking direct numbers, but if you look at a pie chart of where your income streams come from, can you kind of break that down? I know you were saying some of the seminars and things were a lot of the bigger gigs.
Yeah.
So can you give me a basic breakdown of like, okay, most of my income comes from seminars or this or that or the other, and then a big percentage of it comes here, and then
Yeah, I'd say like at least a quarter of it is coming from workshops, which eventually I want it to be like 50 to 75% because I want to do like retreats. And when I say workshops, they're like cooking workshops and nutrition and things that I do within the corporate environment.
Okay.
But I mean, at least 50% is from clients that I work with.
Okay.
You know, and then the rest would be from someone like, you know, like the company Nutritionist that I consult with and doing projects that way. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, I'm always just real interested, you know, in people that, like myself, that don't have a full-time job and don't have one steady paycheck that comes twice a month, you know.
Yeah.
I'm always interested because, you know, everybody that doesn't have a full-time job is usually a hustler and has paychecks and income streams coming from various places. And I'm getting the feeling from you mentioned ADD a couple of times, like, you know, you just like to have your hands in a lot of stuff and you're excited, you're passionate about things. So the more you can do, the more stoked you're going to be. So it makes sense. And I'm just, like I said, real curious as to where all the little streams start to trickle in and form the big pond or lake, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go back to the quick hits and start trying to wrap this up. So tell me about the mentors in your life. And you were saying that some of them you haven't necessarily met.
Yeah, mentors, I'd say, you know, I was trying to chase this whole like fitness modeling type of dream. I mean, I looked up this guy, Greg Plitt, who was an Army Ranger who just went beyond just being like a fitness model. He started a website to just inspire people through information. So I consider that person a mentor.
And that's someone you have not met?
That's someone that I have not met.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I have my uncle of mine. You know, and this is perfect. Like how you define successful. My uncle Chris, just him successful is like his outlook on life. The guy just travels around all the time. He's the happiest guy. He skis. He's always trying to include people in everything he's doing. And like he's being a big mentor just for my outlook on life as far as like positivity, and just a great guy that just makes time to make people's life better, and has nothing to do with financial type of stuff. I mean, he does what he does to get by. He does well at times, and I think he's an engineer or electrician. I'm sorry, but he works on these big, cool projects. But he's just inspiring from a health perspective and how he balances everything.
How do you decompress? You've got a lot going on, and I assume sometimes you need to just unwind a little bit.
Meditate. It's true. Yoga really opened up the idea, and I used to make so much more time for it, but now it's like smaller bites and pieces are more realistic. But finding a way to get grounded, I definitely try to unplug, whether it's a 15, 20-minute nap. That's powerful for me, but being able to bring cortisol down, which is your fight and flight hormone, is kind of like hitting the reset button. Getting to the beach, it's my happy place. Like just looking at the beach, jumping in the water, a cold shower and then a nap. You know, that helps me decompress. It sounds crazy, but trying to find a way to unplug and meditation. But to me, it doesn't necessarily always I need a vacation to get away. Like I love what I do, but sometimes it's just having a half day to unplug or, you know, an hour less to meditate, just clear my mind of just, you know, taking gratitude and focusing on all the good things that have happened. And so meditation and just that quiet time.
When you say unplug, does that mean you specifically leave your phone away or don't get on the computer?
I have to, yeah. I mean, because it's too easy to see that little flashing red button or the sound. So, like for me, unplugging, I mean, I'd love to do it longer, but just like, you know, putting your phone in a different room or unplugging or focusing, go outside, read a book, you know, get outdoors, ride your bike in nature without, you know, sometimes with music, without music, and just cut yourself off from like be in the now, you know. And it's so cliche that we're hearing this present moment type of stuff, but it's true. It's like just be mindful, and that's the opposite of being mindless. I don't know. But just be maybe you need to be mindless, but you know what I mean. Unplug from things and just think about what's, you know, what you have, and let everything else kind of just don't get so worked up over things.
When do you feel like you get hit by inspiration or ideas the most?
I'm glad you asked that. So, I mean, I have a whole section on my computer, a folder I created called Mindful University. And I constantly sync for it. For me, it's like I have like a gas gauge, and when it's going low, I fill it up. And I have, some inspirational, like, some of those YouTube videos, like if you Google YouTube motivation, like some of those videos, like hearing people's quotes.
Mm-hmm.
There's this guy, Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop preacher, who pumps me up. I listen to his podcasts and stuff online occasionally. Believe it, hip hop music. I love hip hop music because to me it's like poetry of the struggle. And like some people, it might not be their thing, but to me it's like overcoming obstacles. So it's like I go to that if I'm feeling low, or I journal. So sometimes my journal is scribbles on my scheduler, but writing down different quotes. So I know it's like if I'm not feeling really motivated, I can ask myself like where I'm at on a 1 to 10, and I know that I can click on a folder of like an ebook I read or a book that I read or took some notes or go to. There's this other website called Addicted to Success, like just reading like little examples of write-ups of profiles of people who have done well and overcome of obstacles.
Cool. Speaking of that, that's actually a perfect segue to the next question. If there was a movie made about your life, what would be the hardship or obstacle that you overcame in order to achieve your success?
Oh, wow. I'm a big believer. Again, when I read this philosopher notes, I came across this, this book or one by Abraham Maslow, but another one by Joseph Campbell, who helped make popular this idea of a hero's journey. So every movie that we like to watch, you can think Star Wars or modern day action films, that has like a hero that goes through a process of growing, getting older. Like I think Karate Kid, has a challenge, sweep the leg, and then comes back and is like a hero. So it's like I feel like everybody really has that, and you have to realize what it is. So that being said, me, it's just overcoming being fairly underprivileged and forced to be really resourceful. I want to be able to give back and just teach people to be more resourceful and bring back that inspiration of just living a happier life. As a kid, I've always loved to see a smile on people's faces. So it's like, overcoming not having the necessities that you need, like growing up underprivileged and feeling, or maybe in a negative environment. So to me, it's been learning to go out and learn these skill sets and get, beat up over and over again, but still pursuing, for your ultimate goal, because, you have unfinished business to come back to inspire people and, bring back that inspiration.
So based off this conversation, I would imagine that you probably have a long list of answers to this question.
Yeah.
But let's try to just get one of your favorite quotes. And, you're a well-read person. You got a lot of books and authors and everybody else under your belt. But is there one quote that either stands out to you a lot right now in your life or just in general, maybe a mantra you kind of live by?
Yeah. The thing that comes to my head right now, and maybe it's sometimes when you're battling, confidence with business projects or whatever, but right now I'd say, I don't know who said this, but I've used it in different times. Act as if, act as if your ideal self. And the reason being that, where I lead that into, it's like rise to the occasion. It's like, I grew up, thinking that what people are doing, like that's for a different type of people, maybe a higher class or whatever the case is. But it's like, there's no one to say what you can and can't do. And if you act as what your ideal self is, like mindset, physically, you will find that you'll rise to the occasion. There's been times where I still get nervous. I try to do stuff that gets me out of my comfort zone, but like speaking in front of 1,000 people got me nervous. I was sweating thinking about it, but it's like you throw yourself out there, you rise to the occasion, and then you move on and you're stronger. So act as if, fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? And people are doing it.
I love it. I feel like the first time I heard that phrase used that way, I think the first time was in the second book in the first book in the blog post about 2 books that changed my life. We already talked about T. Harv Eker's Secret of the Millionaire Mind.
Yeah.
That was the second book that changed my life, which was read right after the first book that changed my life, which I'm almost hesitant to say this because a lot of times it has negative connotations, but the book The Game by Neil Strauss.
I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
Okay, so that book, the author Neil Strauss definitely used the phrase act as if. I don't want to get too into it. Like I said, it's a whole blog post. But the idea for me behind that book was that somebody saw an area of their life where it needed improving or that he wanted to change, and he figured out a way to change it and improve it. And reading his story just made me think, okay, if somebody can do that about one area of their life, you can do it about other areas of your life.
Yeah.
And that is what spiraled me on my journey to figure out how to make myself a better person. The next book I read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which had a huge impact directly on my financial success. And then that just spiraled onto a bunch of other areas of my life. So we're going to wrap it up there. I want to say thank you so much for taking this time. I've had... Oh, dude, I can't wrap it up there. I can't. I have to go back. There's one more topic that we didn't cover. I'm watching this counter tick up, and I got to keep going. So right now you're in LA. You live in Arizona.
Yeah.
So now are you planning to split your time between LA and Arizona? What's the deal with you having two living locations?
I am. I've told people, so many close people to my life, that eventually I was going to end up in closer to the beach or LA area. For one, that just the opportunity as far as being an outlet to reach more people and do work in the entertainment business and be closer to the beach. And so I kind of jumped on that and pretty much just signed up to do it, and without really overanalyzing it too much. I'm going to split time so I can still work with some clients, but eventually planning on making this phase out here to really just rise to that occasion, and I'm not going to know what was possible until I'm out here in a bigger area. Like the health conscious world, although it's needed all over the place, it's so much more open and friendly out here.
Yeah.
And I know that by working with people out here and some opportunities that I've had present themselves, it's going to give me a chance to do it on a bigger level. So,
wow.
So
what's the next couple of months look like as far as, so right now you're renting a place in the LA Hollywood area, is that right?
Yep. That's
and
correct.
you still are renting a place in Arizona?
That's correct.
So you're paying two rents right now. What's the next couple months look like as far as you going back and forth?
Motivation. It's forced me to really schedule more things with my clients, and as far as events, to really, the biggest things that are keeping me in Arizona are like the big events where I'm very comfortable. I have a good network out there, but I don't want to say I've reached the maximum, but I know that if I can do what I've done in that area out here, even a percentage of it, things are going to take off on such a bigger level. So I have workshops that are still planned out there. I'm going to keep that consistent along with some clients that I want to work with. And but the summers are brutal. So I hope by the summertime comes to be, more transitioned out to this area. But right now, probably half and half for the next few months.
Cool. And where exactly is your place in LA that you're renting?
It's right by Runyon Canyon area. It's off of Sunset, right off of Sunset and Poinsettia. I think that's the street. So really close to that whole Runyon Canyon, which I went up and ran this morning.
Nice.
Which it's kind of fun.
So part of my journey in trying to become a better version of myself is learning that I used to have a really bad habit of bursting people's bubbles and being like a negative sayer, and I directly get that from my mother, and I try to be real conscious of it. So I don't want to be that right now, but I have to put this out there. You're pretty far from the beach. And with LA traffic,
I know.
I'm wondering how much you're actually going to get to the beach.
I'm going to make it happen.
I'm worried about that for you. I'm worried.
The beach is my happy place. And the LA experience was, I have some good business opportunities that I'm close to where it's at, and I want to focus on really taking this stuff to the next level. I know by the beach I could do well and maybe establish myself as like the go-to person, by the beach area, but I know being close to what I need to in the entertainment side of it, like being here is going to hold me accountable to really moving things to the next level. So it's more from a business perspective. I'm not even, I'll be 30 later this year, so I got a lot of plans to end up by the beach, I should say. But this gets me closer, and it's next step.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can hang out a lot more once you're out here more often. So we're going to wrap it up there. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully everybody else does too, and don't mind that we've already ran now for an hour and 45 minutes. Go ahead and plug the places you want to plug, and of course I'll put all these links in the show notes and stuff on the website. But where can people find you online and connect?
The easiest way, following on Instagram. I post the most updates. That's just Instagram with my name, Jason Sani, Sani. Following my Facebook Active Mind and Body page, I post a lot of recipes and videos. And then Nutritionist, a big project that I'm working on. So check out their products. I can send you out some samples if you want to try some of our pea protein, best tasting plant-based protein around. And then Fit Clubz with a Z. Google it, check it out, and see what it's all about.
Cool. We'll have all that in the show notes and direct links and stuff.
Ebook coming soon.
Oh, yeah, and we'll keep people updated on the ebook. So in the meantime, until next episode, you can check out the Expansion Project's website, and we'll have all those links there. That's theexpansionprojectpodcast.com. Unfortunately, the lady that owns expansionproject.com wouldn't sell it to me. So we have a long URL. But also, as you're hearing this, of course, we have officially launched, and the show is on iTunes. So please subscribe on iTunes, and please give me a 5-star rating, and also leave a review. It's not like Instagram where a review is just like a comment, and it's kind of an ego-based thing a lot of times. A review does really help out the show, and Jason talked a lot about kind of reaching the maximum potential. And my hope is that by getting more reviews, more people see the show, more people benefit from it. Also on the website, please check out the Amazon banner. I signed up to be an Amazon affiliate marketer. So what you got to do is go to the expansionprojectpodcast.com. You click on the Amazon banner. It's going to take you to Amazon, and you bookmark that link and just use that link from now on anytime you want to buy stuff on there. I got the Prime account. I buy stuff on there probably 2 or 3 times a week. I just hate going to the store because it's so convenient to get everything shipped, free 2-day shipping. So use that Amazon banner. That's going to help out and kick back a little bit of funds to help keep this thing rolling. You can follow all of my social networks at FatTonyBMX, and of course my personal website at FatTonyBMX.com. Also, follow my dog's Instagram, Hercules. He's a badass little Yorkie. Follow him on Instagram at Life of Hercules. And I'm going to leave you with a weekly tip. Don't leave your shaker bottle in the car for a week after you've drank the protein. The smell is absolutely horrendous. You won't get the smell out of there. You're going to have to throw away the bottle. So don't do it. And that's a wrap. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot.